Wall Street predictions and the real estate news industry together are both like broken clocks. They're both right like twice a day, but if you watch them, you're going to not make much progress. I'm Bill Gross. This is my real estate weekly update. And we look at the real estate industry news, both for where we are and try to understand where we're headed, and then watch the bad news to understand what to avoid. So Wall Street, particularly Goldman Sachs, is projecting interest rates to go up, but really down. How does that all work out? We'll get to that. But before we do, let's take a look at the current market conditions so we understand the market of where we are. I would say that there's two factors to an economy. There's the supply and demand. Supply would be sellers or inventory. Demand would be buyers, and they're driven mostly by interest rates. Lower rates make payments lower, bring more buyers in. Higher rates push agents out. So we watch both those closely. Take a look at interest rates most recently. We're just below 8%. This is, again, a high. This is the high of the year. This is the high of the last 5 years. You have to go back to pre-2000 into the prior millennium to get up above the rates we are today in 1999, I think. September 2000. So 23 years ago, rates were about where they are right now. And so we can see that this is going to have an impact on the marketplace. It's not determinative. All year we've been between 6 and 7%. Around July, we went above 7 and stayed there between 7 and 7.5. In the last few weeks, we've bumped up to 7.81%. That doesn't mean rates are going to continue to go up. Doesn't mean they're going up. That means they went up. But what does it mean for the future? Well, I don't know. Not sure we can predict what's going to happen, but it's certainly a concern. And I always tell buyers, get your rate locked in if you can, and sellers, make sure your buyers are able to close on time. You don't want to hold things up. So a big jump in rates for the last week and about a 0.25% drive in the last 2 weeks, worth paying attention to. Now, on the supply side, that continues to not result in more houses for sale to drive down prices. In fact, the opposite. We're now blaming high rates on sellers not willing to sell their house because they have a great rate. Why would they give it up to get a new rate? You can see the inventory levels are below any time in history other than last 2 years ago. The depths of the pandemic had less inventory for sale than right now. But right now, it's the lowest ever otherwise on record, whether it be the prior year, last year of the pandemic, 2020 of the pandemic, or even the prior years before the pandemic, about half the inventory. As long as there's not too many homes for sale, you can't have competition among sellers to drive down prices. And that's why, despite sales numbers dropping 30% from a year ago, housing prices are still slightly going up. Of course, they may or may not stay up with inflation. Let's take a look at the local market in Los Angeles. I use Altos Research. They have a great tool, and they're saying that we're still in a seller's market barely. At 42 is their ranking they use, and these are the key factors. Price per square foot, you get $816, gets you a square foot of average housing in LA. That's been pretty consistent. And I watch that number carefully because if that number drops, it tells you you get less housing for the money, prices going up. And that number goes up, people paying more competition. So worth watching for sure. Okay, so let's get into the news. One of the first stories I would talk about is a lot of guessing. What is the Fed going to do? What's the Fed going to say? I think it's worth getting in the head of these people when you can. And I think they're really overrated. In my mind, most government officials are just great resumes and pretty much empty suits. Here's an example. Business Insider has, here's how one top Fed is thinking increasingly about the increasingly unaffordable housing market. Now, what never occurs to any of these guys is we should build more houses. What never occurs to any, because that would violate some sort of environmental rules. What never gets to any of these guys is maybe we should have a budget where we don't spend more than we bring in and have competition for resources in our economy or the government against the people. That they don't think about. But here is Federal Reserve President of the Richmond Fed, North Carolina, Tom Barkin. And this is what he said. The part they normally don't say out loud, he said it. Sectors other than housing will need to see slowdowns. I don't know what business you're in. He's saying that you're making too much money, and if just you and your colleagues made less sales, made less profit, had less money, then housing prices would go down. So if we just trigger a recession or depression, housing prices will go down. Well, duh, who wants that? Here's a guy, because he's paid, by the Richmond Fed. He has his salary either way, and he gets his speaking gigs and his political payments and all that stuff, saying, well, the only problem with housing prices is you all who don't work for me are making too much money. If we could just settle things down in your business, everything will work out. That's what the Fed is thinking. So if you want to wonder is economy going to come save you economically, believe me, that is not their thought process at all. One of the worst sources of news, I find, are the ones you pay for and the ones that have the best reputation. Case in point, the Wall Street Journal. Now, I'll share with you, I have a little tool where you can put in and get behind the paywall. I don't subscribe to any of these. I don't think they're worth the money they charge for the misinformation they give you. But here's the Wall Street Journal. Wall Street thinks America's homes are overvalued. Well, you might think when you read this that us geniuses on Wall Street, us and our fellow geniuses, think your house isn't worth as much as it is. But the article doesn't really say that. What it really says is more homes are being bought by homeowners in this market than by investors, meaning people are buying a home to enjoy living there and raising their family or enjoying peace and quiet on their own more than an investor buying it just to rent out and make money. Is that a bad thing? I thought we want more people to own homes. Aren't we glad that investors aren't buying them all up? But it's even worse than that, because really, if you look at the numbers, they would say in the article, the percentage of homes bought by investors dropped to 0.4% of the market from 2.4%. Now, always notice, when you see a number during the pandemic, generally speaking, that's an outlier number meant to alarm you. They don't say during the pandemic or an aberration. But you go down and look at their chart and they're saying this number is lower than this number. Well, yeah, this was the global pandemic. This was the aftermath of the global depression bankers caused. These are the normal years, and this year is about the same as most normal years, maybe a little lower, maybe a little higher, kind of in that range. But they're saying Wall Street thinks your house is overvalued. No, Wall Street is saying we can't steal homes from people and force them to be rental servants to us, and they're disappointed. So the Wall Street Journal, of course, makes them feel good and sound loud. Next, another lousy article of the week is from a regular participant in the winner this week. Spoiler alert, Yahoo Finance. So Yahoo Finance has an article that says, asking prices plummet. Ooh, they plummeted as mortgage rates hit 20-year high, which is true. Is it time to buy, sell, or stay put? Well, it's always time to buy, sell, or stay put. So that's just filler, because whoever wrote the headline didn't know what else to say. Rarely does the author write the headline. There is a distinction there. But do the asking prices plummet? Well, let me just share with you, when you read into the article itself, the only data that it brings up has nothing to do with actual prices. Again, this says asking prices plummet. What happens is home sellers reduce their price, so not the overall asking prices, but they reduce their price from the original listing 6.5% of the time. And that's a dramatic increase, apparently, from 5.8 in August. It's 90% change. Remember, the word here is plummet. It went from 6.5 to 6.5 to 5.8. That's not a plummet. That's probably a rounding error. That means out of 1,000 homes, maybe 70 more cut their price. Out of 1,000 homes, how does that work? 6.5% would be, no, 65, 7. Out of 1,000 homes, 65 cut the price rather than 58 the prior month. 7 more cut the price. That's all that it means. Yahoo Finance. So this is another example of Yahoo Finance providing the echo chamber for who? Who was it that gave them this data? Redfin. So Redfin didn't highlight that in their article. They put most home sellers dropped their asking price as more, not plummet, more home sellers dropped their asking price as mortgage rates hit a 2-decade high. That's more accurate, maybe slightly more or more, but not plummet. So Yahoo basically takes Redfin's data and then just puts some lipstick on it and some sparkles and makes it look good because they want more clicks than Redfin, who actually put the data out. That's kind of the real estate industry news, if you understand what's going on. Okay, well, Redfin also did make news this week. The New York Times is reporting, I love this article, Redfin, the online real estate broker, leaves a powerful realtor group. Well, a couple things. First, I love that the New York Times, there's only one powerful realtor group. It's the group of realtors. The National Association of Realtors is the only group of realtors because they own the trademark. So they didn't leave a powerful realtor group. They left the realtor group. I just love the New York Times. It used to be the paper of record. And they note in their article that it's a trademarked word, but they don't use the proper English grammar to present that. So Redfin's CEO his panties are in a bunch because it is bad. The NAR president is being accused of sexual impropriety. Don't know if he did it or not. It turns out an LA Dodger famously this week, turns out those allegations were 180 degrees false, and his career was ruined. He had to go to Japan to play baseball on false allegations. So don't know if it was true or not, but Redfin's, as I've shown recently, has become more of a political organization, I think, than a realtor organization. So good luck. They're leaving the realtor organization. Glad to see them go. And on their way out, they want to stick it to us and say they're more consumer focused. I don't think that's true at all. I think they write articles all the time. They're anti-consumer, and I make that case almost weekly. And I would do the same if the realtors organization, Realtor.com, was similarly misleading as they are. But I don't think that's the case. So again, Redfin leaves the National Association of Realtors, which means they'll have to leave the local boards and no longer be members of the MLS. Good luck, good riddance, goodbye. And if I can help you sell a house, please feel free to give me a call, but glad to see them go. Okay, next story of the week, local, here in LA. I think it's fabulous. Unfortunately, the article itself got passed by. I waited here a little too long. Here, let me see if I can get the map back up on it. Okay, so this article is about a development. The city of LA, the government of LA, is attempting to solve the housing crisis. The government of LA can't fill potholes. They're so incompetent. They don't do anything right. They can't stop crime. They can't stop potholes. So now they're going to turn a parking lot into an interim housing facility. And imagine that. It's not sitting well with residents. Well, I wonder why. It's at the corner of Pico and Midvale. Pico Boulevard in West LA. Midvale's near where the West Side Pavilion used to be. And it's really, I wish I could really show you, it's really a neighborhood of single-family homes right on the corner on Pico. There happens to be a lot. And here's our councilwoman, Katie Yaroslavsky, who married into the family of Zev Yaroslavsky. So she's basically a political, darling of the political class. Really hasn't done anything but be a political activist in her career. And she's representing us. And here's residents upset. Why? So, well, I'll tell you, having served on the neighborhood council in Los Angeles previously, is nobody wants to build a project near their home unless it brings value to them. The last thing anybody wants is a interim housing where people with mental health issues, criminal issues, drug issues are going to be housed on an interim basis. What's funny is in this article, it even says that residents don't want a property, particularly because it's to put in a development like this, too close to businesses, homes, and schools. Well, where would you build housing? People want to live someplace where they can either go to work or go to school or go to their friends and family, other homes. And so the residents don't want it anywhere near businesses, homes, or schools. That's the problem with the city trying to build these developments is nobody wants them near them. Katie Yaroslavsky lives in South Carthay Circle. Believe me, she's not going to put this project in her neighborhood. Her neighbors would kill her. There's no way that's going to happen. And so it just shows the difficulty of the city solving the housing crisis versus having good policies that encourage the building homes that people can naturally move into. I just don't think there's a solution here. And as we see more and more tent cities and people living on sidewalks and streets, the cities show no ability to solve the problem. But the award for the worst article of the week goes to Yahoo Finance yet again and their partners in crime, Goldman Sachs. Now, Goldman Sachs is one of the princes of the world They organize, manage over $100 billion of assets, more than about half the countries of the world. And so the article says, this is Yahoo Finance, Goldman Sachs calls an audible mortgage rates going up, after all, in 2023. So the bozo economists at Goldman Sachs that they allow to print information to the public, not the economists who give information to their real investors, big companies and government entities, but the ones that are allowed to give consumer-facing information, projected mortgage rates to be 5.9%. Today they're at 7.8, as I mentioned. So they only missed by 2%. That's a big miss. What's funny about this article, I wish I could bring up the video. It doesn't let me. There we go back a little bit. Here you go. They're projecting, again, Goldman Sachs calls an audible mortgage rates going up, right? They're projecting by the end of the year rates to go up to 7.1%. We're already at 7.8. This is like watching a football game in the third quarter and the Rams scored 28 points and you get a bet that they're going to score 21 or more. Well, of course they're going to be right. They're projecting rates that are 0.75% below where they are today. And then next year, they're projecting them to be 6.8. Again, they say rates going up after all, but they're going to go up to 7.1 and then they'll go up to 6.8. So Yahoo Finance has a projection 180 degrees wrong. They're projecting rates to go down the end of the year. And they're projecting them to go down by next year from where they are today. But they're too stupid to know that. But worse than that is Goldman Sachs, what are they projecting? Are they projecting rates are going to jump down 0.75% in the next 2 months? On what basis to make that point? Everything I've heard is saying the Fed's going to continue to raise rates through the end of the year. The best bet is rates are going to stay where they are. So I don't know. Is this on purpose or complete incompetence? I'll let you decide. But either way, it's nonsense. So what should you do? Well, don't believe the real estate news. Look at your local information. Talk to your actual lender on the rates you can actually get. Let's make a plan if you're thinking of selling a home to get the best strategy for you. You might be able to use your mortgage and keep that property's low rate to help you finance your next house. Talk to me about that if you're interested in selling. If I can help at all, reach out to me. I'm at LAProbate on social media. Call, text, or email me. If you like this video, please like it or subscribe. And as always, make today your best day ever. Thanks so much.